Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Believe in Saints. He is Terrence Copper. I am David Grubb, and it is week 15, 15. And we're getting towards the end of the season, final 4 weeks of the season for the New Orleans Saints coming off the bye, 4-9 this week, taking on the 5-8 Falcons. And TC, this was the start of the season. These two teams started the season against each other. They're a game apart now, but it's two completely different teams that will face off in the Superdome than what we saw in week one in Atlanta.
Oh, it definitely is. But again, I feel like this is a must-win game for the Saints. Like I said, we still got some glimpse of playoff hopes, very slim. But if you want to keep them hopes alive, we got to win this game. And you don't want to be last in the division.
No. I mean, you still have a chance at a 500 record in the division. No, but yeah, you still have a chance at 500 record in the division if you can beat Atlanta and Carolina. So that'll put you at 3-3. That's important. You don't want to be below 500 in the division. And like you said, the playoffs are still a possibility. This is a rivalry game with the Falcons, the team that you have been, like connected to since your birth. And you're coming off a very, that week one game, which came down to the last minute to pull out. The Falcons want some revenge on that too. You came and you beat them on their home turf in week one. And for them, if that's a win in their pocket, you're looking at a very different season for them at 6-7 than at 5-8 with the 4 games that they have at the end of the season. If they could beat the Saints, beat the Panthers, beat the Bucks, and maybe beat the Baltimore Ravens, the Falcons are talking about making a playoff run. So this game matters to them too.
Oh, it definitely matters. And it's going to be, to me, I think it's going to be a tough game. Like it's a rivalry game. Truthfully, it didn't matter what the records were. If we was way above 500 or they were, it didn't matter. This game is going to come down to, I feel like it's come down to the last possession. It's going to be a tough game. We always play each other's tough, no matter where we're at. So it's going to be a tough game, but it's a game that we have to pull out. I'm ready to see what we're going to do differently coming out of the bye week.
Yeah, what kind of changes did the Saints make during the bye? Because we know that at the top, the status quo did to say the same with the quarterback situation. And that's been a subject of a lot of conversation all season long. And first, again, we want to reiterate, and I think, I don't think I'm speaking out of pocket when I say I'm speaking for you on this. Nobody's blaming Andy Dalton for the Saints being 4-9.
No,
Nobody's
not at
saying
all.
this is his fault. But what we do acknowledge is there are two things that are definitely true. Number one, Andy Dalton is not the future for the New Orleans Saints at the quarterback position. We know this. Number two, you have invested 2 years of money in Jameis Winston. The season is for all intents and purposes. Yes, you still have something to play for, yes. But the evaluation part for most of these guys, for the wide receivers, for your offensive line, you know who's coming back next year, what's contract based. I'm not making any new judgments on Chris Olave. I'm not making any new judgments on any of these guys over the last 4 weeks because this team is beat up, is battered. I know what I've pretty much got out of these guys. The one guy I don't know on my offensive roster, what he can do when healthy, because the only time we saw him partially healthy, he led one of the greatest comebacks in franchise history in the fourth quarter at the beginning of this season, then got hurt in that same game, and we never saw that guy again. It seems to be, I understand consistency. I understand having the same guy in the huddle every week and trying to get some consistency with the offense that has not been so. But at this stage, I just don't understand, for the purposes of both the team in the present and the future, not evaluating Jameis in real game situations.
The only thing I can come up with is that we're probably going to trade him at the end of the season. And we want to make sure that he's healthy. That's the only thing I can come up with because, like I said, you got to know what you have, especially for the draft. Do you need to draft another quarterback, or do you still believe in Winston that he's the guy? I still think you draft a quarterback, but you
But the
got to figure out.
style, like I want to see, does Jameis's style, is that the style that works with the receivers that I have? Does he go with what I want to do offensively? Because even then you're trying to figure out the template for the type of quarterback you're going to draft, right? You're trying to figure out it's not Andy Dalton. You're not drafting Andy Dalton in the draft. You're not taking him in the first, second, or third round. You know what I mean? So if you're taking, are you going to take a guy with a big arm like Jameis, or are you taking somebody who's a more of a precision West Coast type passer? Let's see what Jameis does. Yeah, because I think there's more you can learn about what you don't want too. If what you do want, what you don't want, by just getting another style in there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I really think they have to play him just to evaluate him because you really haven't evaluated him since he's been there because he's been hurt so much. So you really don't know what he. I mean, you know what he can do, what he's capable of because he shows flashes. But now we're down the home stretch. You know, is the draft is coming up in next year coming around. We need a quarterback. We just don't know what we're gonna do with Jameis. Do we hold on to Jameis? Do we try to trade? Do we try to trade him? You just don't know because you don't know what you have. I mean, you know what you have, but you don't know. So that to me, that's the biggest reason why I feel like we have to play him. But if you're not playing him, the only thing I can come up with is you trying to keep him healthy because he does tend to get injured. You're trying to keep him healthy so you can have a market to trade him. That is the only thing that I can think of why you're not playing him.
It just, I mean, you see the fan base is not behind this decision, and I think that players are going to stand behind their quarterback. Nobody, I don't think anybody dislikes Andy at all. But I do think that the team needs something, and I think this would have been the right time. Again, we talked about different times. The bye is the right time to do it. You know what I mean? And that's when you can see, you can give Jameis an opportunity. Maybe there's some plays. Maybe there's just a package. Maybe you give him a couple drives or something just to see. Because I just think that the team needs something down the stretch to light a spark, because there is no spark right now. And it's hard. It's hard when guys are trying and the results aren't showing. And I think Atlanta, you look at them, they get their spark kind of because they've been 1-4 in their last 5 games, but 3 of those 4 losses were by 1 possession. So now you take out Marcus Mariota, who gets injured, and you bring in a kid like Desmond Ridder, who the Saints evaluated and thought about drafting, considered him. We know he was a very talented college player, threw for over 10,000 yards, 87 touchdown passes, 20 ran for 2,100 yards and 28 touchdowns. So it brings that mobility to the league, which is something that the Saints have struggled with too. Pretty accurate guy during the preseason, but that's preseason football. But he did run the ball again, 8 carries for 58 yards in the preseason. That challenge, I think, is, again, that's something that the Saints are going to have to deal with because he runs in a different way than Mariota did. Mariota's a lot more cautious with the football too, a guy who does not want to throw downfield. Ritter's a guy who can throw it down the field. And the Saints are 1-2 this season against quarterbacks that can run. They lost to Kyler Murray, lost to Lamar Jackson, beat Marcus Mariota, but those quarterbacks ran for over 100 and 100 something like 160 yards against the Saints. So over 180 yards against the Saints in those 3
Yeah,
games. So
we're gonna have to come out and play, especially with him being at the quarterback. I've evaluated him for 2 years because he comes from Cincinnati,
right.
and of course, like I said, I do the pregame, postgame show for East Carolina University in the same conference. So I've watched this guy and evaluate this guy for a couple of years already, and he is a winner. And everything you said is exactly how he is. He's not afraid to take chances. He will run the ball with his legs. He's athletic. And he's a winner. He comes from a program of Cincinnati where those guys are not, put it this way, they made the Final Four a couple of years ago when him at the quarterback. And in order to do that, you have to have a chip on your shoulder because Cincinnati is not one of these highly touted Power Five teams that should be in the playoffs. So the fact he can take his team there to the playoffs, even though they got beat, but this guy's a winner. He's an athlete and he can throw the ball. So we definitely have our work cut out for us. We got to be ready to play. Offensively, we have to score points. I look at the overall team, and no, do I think Coach Allen deserves to be fired? No, he doesn't. Not his first year. He doesn't deserve to be fired. But defensively, we're doing well. Defensively, we're not perfect, but we are handling our own to the fact that we should be winning more games than we are. Offensively, we have struggled. We have struggled night in and night out. We have struggled. I don't know what that reason is, But I think if changes are going to be made, it'll be on the offensive end and maybe not the defensive end. Those are just my thoughts. If we make a change at all.
Because there has to be more creativity, especially in the red zone. How many red zone possessions this year for the Saints? And one of the statistics that they showed to talk about on fourth downs last year when it was 4th and 2 or less, like Sean Payton would go for it 80-something% of the time to try to extend the drive or to get points. The Saints have not gone for it this season in 4th down or 2 or less.
But you know what? I don't necessarily dislike that stat because if you got Sean Payton there and you got Drew Brees, guess what? You
Well, last year
believe
they
in your
didn't have Drew
quarterback.
Brees, and this is counting last year too. Like
Oh,
last year they
okay.
went for a lot last year too, and
That's
that's the
true.
thing is like that aggression. I think that in a couple of those times we go back to the Buccaneers game, and you have those two
Mm-hmm.
very important red zone possessions where you end up with field goals.
Mm-hmm.
That unwillingness to say this is a 2-play, on 3rd down, we got to have 2 plays for 3rd and 3, be prepared
Mm-hmm.
for 4th and 1 or 4th and 2. And the Saints had that 2 times, 2 very, I think, makeable plays against the Buccaneers in the red zone. Didn't use Taysom Hill in either one of those situations. Didn't use Alvin Kamara in either one of those situations. So it was very, we saw it. It just did not work. And I think some creativity, again, seeing Kamara or Taysom in space and just say make one person miss. I am willing to bet on Alvin Kamara or Taysom Hill either making a person miss or Taysom running them over. If it's all I need is 2 yards. If all I need is
Right.
2 yards, I'm willing to take that bet 9 times out of 10 that they're gonna make it.
Definitely. I definitely agree with you with that. I agree with you on that. I just don't think that we have the confidence in our offense to do those things this year. And that could be because player wise or just the ability to call the right play that put us in the right position to be able to make those downs.
How much of that, and we've seen teams. Let's take, and people have used this as an example because Dan Campbell is from the Saints staff. He had
Mm-hmm.
experience with Saints staff. He goes to Detroit, and they talk about Dan Campbell's attitude and lifting a team in the Lions that that's my hometown team. I grew up watching the Lions. I know how bad they have been. They've won one playoff game in the 47 years that I've been alive. Okay. So, and we've had Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson, all these great players, one playoff win. Now I'm watching Dan Campbell up there take Jared Goff, a guy who's gotten beaten out for quarterback multiple times, been kicked around, and he's got them dudes. They've won 5 out of the last 6. They beat Minnesota last week. Team only had 2 losses. They beat Minnesota last week, beat them by double digits. That attitude for a Lions team that don't have any stars. Amon-Ra St. Brown might be the only dude on their team that right now
Mm-hmm.
looks like a star on that offense.
Mm-hmm.
But there they are, 5 and 6 with attitude. You know what I'm saying? Like they haven't played great in a lot of these games, but they've won games because I think these dudes believe now that they can win. And I think, like you said, the Saints, for whatever reason, whether it's inside the players themselves or the coaching staff, maybe the coaching staff doesn't believe in the players enough, or the players might not believe in the coaching staff enough, but the vibe ain't there.
And you know what? The reason why I feel like the Lions, not to jump to the Lions, are succeeding the way they are, for one, last year, I mean, they didn't have a good record last year, but the majority of their games, they lost by 3 to 7 points last year. So it wasn't like they were just getting blown out of the water. They
Mm-hmm.
just didn't know how to finish games. And the same thing is going on now. They're finishing games now. The mentality of Dan Campbell, I think, is a cancer, and it spreads within his team. And the way he is, his mentality, his passion for the game, it has spread to his team. And they feel they can win games. They play with the same amount of passion that he coached with, and the type of guy he is. I played with Dan for 2 years in Dallas, so I know the type of guy he is. I just don't feel like the Saints have that passion the way they did when Coach Payton was here. I don't think we have that coach on the sideline that is as passionate. Not saying they don't have love for the game, but the way they coach with a passion, I don't think we have that guy on the sideline, not in authoritative positions. So I just don't know. I'm just trying to figure out why we can't get this thing going, and this is what I come up with.
because that's the last thing I think that you would have used to describe New Orleans Saints football for the last 17, 18 years is passionless. And this year it's been passionless football to watch. You know what I mean? And I think that
Yeah.
that's the most disappointing part. Not that guys aren't trying. I'm never going to
Hmm.
question a man's competitive spirit. But, when it's a hard season, your passion can change. You know your
Hmm.
job. You go out and do your job. You are dedicated to your work. But how you throw yourself into it, 100% of what you have can be different on every day. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
My
Yep. Yep.
100% on Monday and my 100% on Tuesday can be completely different things based on my attitude.
Yep.
And I think that that's where we see the Saints is that even if they give 100% right now, that mental edge, that part of that belief, that swagger that they used to carry when they walked into other stadiums or when people walked into the Superdome, that edge, whether it was worth 3 points, 6 points, whatever it was worth, it's not there with them anymore.
No, it's not. And I'm ready to see what happens out of this break, out of this bye week. We had a chance to recharge. Mentally, you had a chance to recharge. Physically, you had a chance to recharge. You had a chance to go back to the drawing board to scout yourself, to see your tendencies, to see the things you can get better at. Now I want to see what we can put into play, put into action. And we play our rivals this week. We've already beat them once this year. I want to see what we can do coming out of this bye week.
Well, let's do quickly the keys then. I think defensively, you're going up against a rookie quarterback making his first start. Historically, the Saints have had bad luck against rookie quarterbacks making their first start, but we know two things you got to do. Number one, they're going to have to win first down, put him in long situations. You can't allow him to be in second is short. And then I think the other thing is the Saints are going to have to be able to change coverages and looks for him when he is in passing situations. And hopefully during that, without having to blitz, because we don't want to see him run and get 70, 80 yards on the ground, because you got to deal with Cordell Patterson too. But it's confuse him, and hopefully you can get a turnover or two.
Definitely. Like I said, you don't want to just blitz just regular blitzes. You want to disguise these blitz. You still want to put pressure on him, but you want to disguise the blitz. And the way you blitz him is going to be different than you can blitz a regular quarterback because the fact he can run the ball, you got to blitz him with your DNs. They can't get behind the quarterback. When they blitz, they got to collapse the pocket from the outside in without going behind the quarterback. And your interior guys, they got to push straight forward, push back 3 yards. That is 3 yards is the golden number for your interior rush. Is to push the line back 3 yards, sit them in the quarterback pocket. You got your outside guys blitz from the outside in, not going behind them to open up running lanes. And also, there may be some zone blitzes you have where you can disguise it, but you have to disguise it. Uh, but we gotta score points offensively for me. Defensively, we gotta stop the run. We have to stop the run because they're going to come out, especially with a young quarterback, and try to establish the run. They try to keep him out of certain situations.
They ran for
So if we can
200
stop the
yards
run,
in week one.
yes. So if we can stop the run and make him throw the ball, I think we'll be successful defensively. Offensively, we got to put points up. Field goals are not enough in the red zone. You got to score touchdowns.
And you saw again, week one, the Saints opened up that first drive, give it a lot of Taysom Hill, and he got big yards. Remember that? Like I think he had that it was a
Mm-hmm.
40-yard run, set up that first
Mm-hmm.
touchdown, gets in the red zone, boom, touchdown. Saints up early. Man, try it again. Go back to that. You see if they've adjusted to it or not. To me, it's go back to the things that you know that worked against them. You saw also, again, can you do the things? Can you test them vertically and across the field? In downfield matchups, does Chris Olave have winning matchups? Does Rashid have winning matchups? That's where the Saints were able to do damage against the Falcons was getting downfield. And the Falcons do have a good pass rush. They hit Jameis, a few times in that opening week, and Andy is not as mobile. So getting the ball out quickly is going to be very important for him too.
Yeah, and that you hit the key right on the head. We had Jameis Winston that game. So when we were attacking down the field, it was him making those throws. I don't know if the quarterback, I don't know if Dalton, if he can make those same throws. Not saying he can't, but I just don't know if he can. So we shall see. We shall see.
You said this is another last possession game. It usually is with these teams. I'm gonna go 24-21 Saints. in this one. They hang on and get this one and get off the snide. What do you say?
I'm going 17-20 Saints. 17-20 Saints. I don't think that the young quarterback they have in Atlanta, I don't think he understands how good this defense is. We have our record does not show how good our defense is. Uh, and we have our days where we go out and we look like, we should be contenders defensively. So I don't think he understands how we play defensively. I think we got a great defensive coordinator in Allen, Coach Allen. And I think we got some players on the defense side of the ball that are really trying to step up and that really take pride in what they're doing. Not saying that the entire team doesn't, but I know
Yeah,
on the defense side of the ball, those guys come ready to play every week.
and they're healthier this week, and
Hmm.
that's very big. Is that you look at the injury report, and there's some guys who were limited this week, but the defensive report of guys being out much better. Like
Hmm.
guys are
Yeah.
practicing, and you get Eric McCoy back this week. So that's huge too to have him on that offensive line. If he's
Hmm.
good to go, they take him off IR. So unfortunately, Mark Ingram again, like we talked about, it looks like his Saints career is over with him going on IR. And if that is the end for him, statistically speaking, one of the three best running backs in Saints history. His career, his legacy in New Orleans is certainly solid. He's going to go into the Saints Hall of Fame someday.
Definitely. Like I said, you hate to see him go out like that, but he has had an amazing career. So hats off to him if it is his last game plan. But, you know, go Saints.
Absolutely. So until the next time, we talk to y'all next week. Enjoy the game, and let's hope the Who-Dats are back. I'm David Grubb. He's Terrence Copper, and this has been Believe in Saints.